it all, but like I was interviewing this like really famous musician, and we were just in this flow. And then two of the film guys, the production guys, were like, they cut in and they're like, dude, that last 15 minutes you guys just flowed, we didn't get. So could you I'm like, oh shit.
It's never the same second time around, huh?
No, man. I'm an off the cuff type of guy. Like it's like I like that flow. But
yeah, for sure.
We learn and we grow, right, man?
Yeah, absolutely, man. For
Dude,
sure.
I'm loving that you started your podcast.
Yeah, you enjoying it?
Oh, dude, it's just something that not only, first off, I mean, you're the first guest now on my show to be here 3 times. You were episode 60 back in June 2018, and then I think about 5 months later, you were episode 121. Now this is episode 204.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Over 200 episodes. That's nuts.
Yeah, man. And the quarantine really is kind of reminded me how much I love doing this because, life is crazy. We have all these other projects on, and I kind of like wasn't really pushing them out at all, maybe once a month. And something I've learned through this quarantine and the world shutting down was what I really enjoyed, things that I really enjoy to be doing.
Yeah, for sure. That's cool.
Yeah, man. You're so Compton Radio. That you're 5 episodes in, 6 episodes in?
Just recorded number 7 the other day, I think, from memory.
Okay.
Yeah, number 7. Yeah. So I did one with John Wayne the other day.
Yeah, he's always a good chat.
Yeah, man. He's pretty much one of those guys that you just click record and then you ask one question and then 10 minutes later you ask another question. And he just keeps rolling. You know what I mean? It's cool.
Yeah, I have this archived podcast that I did before I even had a name for this, where I had John Wayne and Brad Rydell.
Oh, yeah?
Before their second fight.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Yeah, so I might pull that thing out the archive. I never put it out there. Because Brad's
really?
Yeah, I never aired it.
Yeah, right. How come?
Something happened. I think I was working with another business partner, and dude, you'd be shocked with how many interviews I haven't released. Like, at least 50.
Yeah, right.
But
I think I lost you. I think I lost my sound. Hang on a second, man.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfect.
Hang on. Oh, that's better.
Yep, I can hear you perfect.
Yeah. Cool. Sweet. Does this backdrop look okay?
It looks great, man.
Okay, cool. All right. Nice.
Yeah, everything looks great. Why I said I'm stoked that you started a podcast finally, because from a friend and a fan perspective, you being a pro fighter, it's like, dude, we need more of these sort of insights from fighters like yourself, man. So as fans, it shows different parts.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's a funny thing being like, I'm always the guy that's getting it. I'm always the guy that gets interviewed, right? So to be on the other side of that, it's actually like a nice change of pace. You know what I mean? It's fun. It's cool. There's
a lot of learning curves too. I mean, you probably do you get nervous before you interview someone, even though you might know them?
No, not really. I think because I know them quite well, I just treat it like a phone call. I hit record and then we just try to just talk. You know what I mean? Yeah. I don't like plan any questions or anything. I just kind of like, I have a few things in my head and then I just like, we'll just see how it goes. You know what I mean? Just let it play out.
For sure, man. What was your intention behind starting the podcast?
I think the idea for me was just to do something different. And I had like a lot of people that I wanted to talk to and I wanted to learn from, but then I thought, well, I want to share that. But then at the same time, the other side of it was like in our gym, we have a lot of people that like so successful at what they do and the conversations that happen within the walls of Team Compton. I was just thinking one day, I was like, man, we just got to get this out there for the world. You know what I mean? So it's like, that was the main idea, is I wanted to try and like showcase the talent that we have in our gym, but also not even just the fighters, like people that are like infectious disease specialists that train at our gym, and then like doctors and barristers and lawyers, just people that are like so worldly and so well educated that have such great insight into different ideas. I thought, oh man, this would be cool just to put it out there. So I did a couple of episodes with people that I thought would be super interesting, like Aaron and Stewie, and then Damien Brown, and then Geordie, and then I had my baby, and then I just kind of like just fell off the wagon with it. So then when this lockdown came in, I was like, man, I'm just going to smash a few more. So I did another with Geordie, and I was talking to Carnage because we're pretty good mates, and I was like, man, I've got to get this guy on. He's just such a interesting guy to talk to. And then I got him, and I thought, well, shit, now I should get Wayne. So I kind of like veered away from what the original plan was, but I think that like they're great guests, you know what I mean? So it's cool.
Bro, man, some advice just from that perspective. Just keep doing that. Just like creating that network. There's a book that was given to me by a podcast guest by Michael Gerber in the 1980s. It was written about small businesses and how to create brands. And there was a quote in it about your network is your net worth. And it's like, and from your perspective now, man, when the world opens up and dude, you fight for one, like you're a martial artist, lifelong martial artist. You travel to these crazy exotic cities. You experience these crazy exotic life events that not many humans will be able to experience. Now that's like a venue and a route, your show, you can document that too, man. I'm excited to see how that evolves. Yeah,
man. I think it's going to be fun. I got some pretty different guests coming on this week too. Like I got a friend of mine that plays in a big band, but he also tour manages another band. So like they'll just like the things that he's seen and done is, but he also trains martial arts. He's had fights in Thailand, and so it all kind of like gels back together. Pretty cool, I think. So
isn't that interesting? Like I was interviewing a guy last week. He's become a good friend of mine now through the networking. Like it's turned like almost all my mates I've met now through podcasting over the last 5 years.
Yeah, right. That's cool.
He was a Muay Thai fighter. He's a martial artist, but he's a musician now. And it's, you see, I bet, well, you have a music background. Your wife is a musician, martial artist. What's your insights on that? Is it a mental, what is it? Are there similarities with the mindset of a musician and a martial artist? And maybe share some insights on that.
I think so. I think it's the work ethic.
You
know what I mean? I think the work ethic like if you completely strip it back and you look at what fighting is versus what being a musician is, essentially they're both performing, right?
Artists, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's an expression of yourself, whether it's a physical or like emotional or however you want to see it. So I think the work ethic that you have as being a fighter, of getting up every day, doing your morning run, hitting your pad work, hitting your bag work, hitting sparring, dieting, making sure that everything's on point, you become like obsessive compulsive over everything that you do, is exactly the same as a musician. They would wake up every morning and the first thing they think about is, all right, I've got to practice this today. I'm going to write this today. All right, I've got to write 10 songs for my next record in the next like 5 weeks. And I've got to make sure that each one of them is a hit. I can't just write one good song and 9 crap songs. You know what I mean? I've got to make sure that every single one's a hit. And it's the same as fighting like that. You can't go, all right, I'm going to have one good fight and 10 bad fights. You know what I mean? So I think in terms of like performance wise, it's the pressure is the same, I guess. And the pressure and the passion, I guess. I mean, pressure is often conceived as like a negative word, but I don't think it is. I think it's actually quite positive if you know how to use it the right way. And I think, I mean, like I've been married to a musician. We've been married for 5 years, but we've been together for, what was it, like 11 years or something. And I've seen how much hard work goes into my wife's musical career. And I mean, I've got like some of my best mates, they travel the world playing music. Like that's what they do full time. You know what I mean? And like I played music before I was a fighter, and that's what I did. And it's like, I see so many like crossovers where it's like, it seems like they're such chalk and cheese and that they wouldn't meet in the middle, but there is such a correlation between the two. It's crazy.
Yeah. How do you, where you are in your career as I mean, you do a lot. You're a coach, but you're a professional fighter, and you've been in the game. You're a veteran now. How do you ensure that you don't get caught up in that sort of mindset of not needing to learn new things? How do you go about adding more tools to your toolbox as a fighter to ensure that you keep putting on these crazy chaos performances? Because anyone listening or watching, all they have to do is watch your highlight reel, man. Your style is one of my favorites.
Oh, cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I think for me, the thing is like, that's been drilled into me by my dad, who's my coach, since I could walk, right? So it's like, I look back at everything that he's done in his martial arts career. And it's like, I remember being a kid and we used to travel to all these different places, like not just nationally, but internationally. I remember training, I remember my dad training with Eric Paulson in the early 90s in the US. I mean, I don't know if you know who Eric Paulson is, but he's the man, you know what I mean? He was the Shuto king. He was the king of leg locks. He was doing the shit that like John Danaher and these guys were doing now, but he was doing it back in the early 90s. And I always remember when he trained under Dan Inosanto, who was Bruce Lee's right-hand man. And my father was an instructor under him, right? He got like his certifications in the late 90s under Guru Dan Inosanto and the Jeet Kune Do and the Filipino martial arts and things like that. But he had this rule where it's like if you were an instructor under him, he expected you to have 3 to 5 instructors of your own outside of him. So it was like, because his idea is it's like the whole Jeet Kune Do concept, right, is absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add what is uniquely your own. So it's so easy to, if you've only got the mindset of like, this is what I know now, this is it, that you become stagnant. You don't progress, you don't grow, you don't change things, you don't add. It's like, I mean, now like it's just become a habit for me because that's what I did as a kid, that now I travel. If I go on a holiday with my wife, I Google what are the best gyms in the area. You know what I mean? We went to we went away last year to Vegas for a wedding, and I trained 3 times a day every day. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and I just love to learn. And I think if you're passionate about fighting, it's easy to become like, this is what I do. This is how I fight. You know what I mean? I do the same thing now as I did 50 fights ago. But if you're passionate about martial arts and you're passionate about self-growth, that's when you're going to be like, no, I mean, I don't care. I mean, I could learn something on the other side of the world that I may never, ever use in my fight career. But who knows? Maybe when I finish fighting, I'll be training someone else. And I'll go, oh, man, I learned this thing in the back ass of New York in a gym that no one had ever heard of. Man, this is going to be perfect for you. I never used it, but this is going to work for you. Or it doesn't even have to be set techniques, just the principles and seeing how other people train and implement different things. And so for me, I think that to answer your question, the way that I continue to update my skills is just by being passionate about martial arts. And I mean, like, all you got to do is spend a day in our gym and you just see the ideas that we all bounce off each other. Some of them might be completely ridiculous. Some of them are like, wow, that's actually a really smart idea. Let's try and add that in. And I think when, like you said, like it's an artistic expression, right? So it's just constantly developing and growing. And I don't even think about it now. It just happens.
When you hear the word vulnerability, as a fighter, I couldn't think of another profession of a more vulnerable career for somebody to put themselves in this situation and at your level in front of millions of people watching the fight, forever archived for people to go back if you won or you lost. And that situation in itself would frighten the average person. Just the vulnerability side, not only this person's trying to take my head off. Now, with that in mind, I see a lot of fighters during their career and post-career struggle a bit with what to do next or the marketing of their body of work, maybe because they don't want to be vulnerable in a different sense. Why I reference this is a post that you put up on Instagram. You're in the corner, you're talking about an early fight of yours, you're covered in blood, and you're talking about wanting, your body was in pain, the most pain you ever were in. You heard the 8 count, and you ended up getting up. And the point of the post is about culturally and as a society, what we're going through with this adversity and COVID, and about, keep pushing forward. I've been following you for a couple of years now. That sort of vulnerability, showing that side now, you wrote it, you spoke about it, being able to connect with people who aren't fighters. What does that mean to you? And talk about the importance of vulnerability for you as a person regarding your own growth.
Yeah, for sure. I think I heard this quote a little while ago and it's kind of stuck with me. I think, so the quote was, vulnerability is strength, right? So for a lot of people, it's like there's such a negative connotation attached to the word vulnerability. But I think if you can take that vulnerability and you can display it for people to see, then it's no longer a weakness, right? So everybody's vulnerable. I don't care whether you're a fighter or you just work a 9 to 5 in a job. Somebody has some sort of trigger which makes them vulnerable. So I think the best analogy for this is something that I was talking to my strength and conditioning coach about recently, and I talked to the younger guys in the gym that are coming up about it, right? So in the fight game particularly, there's this thought process that, well, it's not even a thought process. It's like this, the way that it's traditionally been, because this is how we have to be when we fight, is we have to completely mask physical pain, right? So it's like you get hit with a massive shot. You can't you can't grimace. You can't show that you're hurt because your opponent's just going to like swarm and they're going to go in for the kill. So I think that thought process then spreads into every other avenue of life as a fighter, which has its pros and definitely has its cons. So the thing that I really noticed is it translates into a lot of people's training as well. So what they do is and I was guilty of this too. I'm not pointing the bony finger of blame. I was definitely guilty of this earlier in my career too, is once you've achieved some sort of success in your career, you get this feeling that everyone's watching you and they're waiting for you to fail, right? And it's a negative thought process, but it's an insecurity thing, and I'm 31 years old and I'm man enough to talk about it now. Like, I get it. Everybody gets it, right? So it's like the thing that I really learned probably around my mid-20s was I allow myself to be vulnerable now. I don't try and hide that vulnerability. I put it out there. So the best example is in training. I see so many people, particularly in the strength and conditioning room and in sparring, they won't take any risks. They won't try and push themselves to a point where they're hurting and they're struggling because they don't want to see other people see them in a point where they're really trying to struggle. You know what I mean? They're say they're on the airline bike and they're doing their sprints, and really they're making out like they're sprinting, but they're probably only really working at 50% of their capacity because they're worried, what if somebody comes in and they see me passing out, or they see me really hurting from what I'm doing? Whereas I'm of the opposite opinion now. I'm like, no, I want you to come in. I want you to see that I'm heaving. I can't even stand up. I want you to see how hard I've worked, and I want you to see where I'm vulnerable, because that's going to make me stronger, right? So you take the word vulnerability or something that is vulnerable, people try to hide it because they know that in a world full of vultures at the moment, people are going to attack it, especially in the fight game, And I'm not trying to talk negative about the fight game. I owe my life to the fight game and I'm so grateful for it. So don't take it in a negative way, but that's the nature of the sport, right? It's like someone sees someone weak and it's like vultures. They go after it. They hammer it, right? So for me, I want to show you my vulnerable moments. I want you to see where I'm not at my best, because that's going to force me to address that issue and make it better. So then if I can address it in the gym and I can address it in front of the people that care about me, I mean, they go after it, but they do it to bring out the best in me, and same vice versa. And then on fight night, like you said, when I'm fighting in front of millions of people, 20,000 people in attendance in the arena, and this guy doesn't give a shit about me, he just wants to put a hole in my head and get his hand raised. Now all of a sudden that vulnerable aspect of my game or my mindset or whatever it is has been dealt with, and I'm bulletproof when I'm in there. Does that make sense?
It definitely does. I'm a fan of definitely the school of thought of vulnerability is strength. It's how we are able to evolve. It's people who allow that mindset of, I don't want to push myself past max capacity because the boys might see me vulnerable and it might call me a pussy. That mindset will hold them back in so many other areas of life, not just the training and their personal relationships. Think of how many personal relationships we've had, friends that they don't work out, intimate relationships, because one side is unwilling to show vulnerabilities. And a lot of it, in my opinion, at least we're all from different places, but we're all similar, is that sometimes the neighborhood we grew up in or the social construct we're raised in, we feel at a certain age, we have to live up to it, or we have to represent that, because that's what either our father said we had to be like, or that's what, our city, we have to live like that. And when I was around 30, 31, when I realized that was a huge component holding my own life's progress back. And when I was able to get rid of that, it was a huge lesson. It was, and it's a great lesson from your perspective, not only for yourself, but like you said, teaching your guys at the gym. Because if you create an atmosphere of athletes and fighters who are all on board with that, I mean, think about the magic that'll happen, the risks that you'll take, new moves that'll come out of that, going for things that you might not have gone for before, and it actually works. So, yeah, I think that's a powerful thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And like you said, if you're taking that thought process of like you can't show any vulnerability at all, and you're taking that out of the gym, out of the fight game into your day-to-day life. I mean, I was just talking to a good friend of mine, Richie, on my podcast the other day about, I mean, he does a lot of work in mental health and gendered violence and things like that. That the number one cause of death in young males in Australia and New Zealand is suicide, right? So you can't show vulnerability, but if you're mentally struggling, it could be anything. It could be emotional stress, financial stress, whatever it is. Maybe you're worried about your fight, whatever. How are you ever going to be able to get your mental health on track when you're not allowing yourself to talk about these vulnerable parts of your life and allowing people to see you at your weakest, so then you can build up? You know, everyone says that the best way to rebuild something is to break it down and build it up. You know, find out where the holes are in the game, and you know, like fix this and fix that and patch that up and make sure this is dealt with. I mean, the human body is no different, right? So
Yeah,
you got to take that same mentality that you have in the fight game and in the gym and in the weight room, and take that and apply it to your everyday life.
yeah. Elliot, hold that thought. I'm gonna reset one camera. We're gonna talk about continue that thought. That's a great point. Cool. Let's reset. 3, 2. Perfect. All good. Yeah, it's it definitely allows people to be free and allows the toxicity to dissipate when guys trust each other too. You know, like, oh man, that's Elliot. That's a dude who fights for one, man. He just said that he needed to work on his jab or something. Fuck, man, I need to check myself then. You know what I mean? It's all about leadership too. I think leadership is, you mentioned the stats of young men, man, and hopefully one day it's not a taboo to talk about mental health and depression. I think it's something that we all depending on, I mean, it's scaled. It's a daily thing. Like, it's just,
absolutely, we
don't know enough about it.
Absolutely. And I do think it is changing in that regard. And I think, I mean, you look at like, there's multiple documentaries about like the NFL and things like that, and the way people spiral out of control into like chronic depression and drug and alcohol abuse post-career, because they've got these demons that they never dealt with, and they never patched up, because it was easy just to cover it over with the sport that they were playing. And it was like, you know, they've got all this media hype and they've got all these things to kind of distract them from things that maybe aren't sitting right within them. And then, like you said, because they can't show any sort of vulnerability, they just have to show constant strength all of the time, that they never allow themselves to just stop and reset and kind of rebuild from where they're at. So then once all of the distractions disappear and it's just you in a dark, lonely room by yourself, it's like, man, all this stuff's going to come to the surface. And if you leave it too long, it's too late. You know what I mean? It's never too late, but you know what I mean? It's like, it's harder to deal with when you have suppressed something for so long. Yeah.
Dana, regarding the fight game, you know, the UFC's Dana White has been super vocal, he always is though, regarding, you know, they're doing the events, three events in 3 weeks in Jacksonville, Florida, starting, I think, next week. Are you getting any news, or do you have any insights on one? Are they in the works with kind of setting something up? You know, maybe talk about that.
Well, so the way that this whole thing is played out is I was actually booked to fight on April 10 on the One Infinity card in Jakarta.
Yeah.
I can't tell you who I was going to fight, but it was in my opinion, it was going to get Fight of the Year.
Oh, right? Yeah.
So obviously with everything that was going on with the COVID situation, they had to cancel the event and they moved to closed door events in Singapore. So then I was told that the fight would then be moved to May 1st. But of course now all borders are closed. And Singapore, I believe, is still in complete lockdown. And that is where One Championship is based. So my guess is that all the time that they're in lockdown, they can't really plan anything. And who knows where the lockdown ends. And you know what I mean? So it's like, when they were supposed to be out of lockdown on like mid-April or whatever it was, I can't remember now. So, but then they extended it to mid-April, which could be extended to June. Who knows? So I think until the government regulations have lifted some sort of restrictions in Singapore, then it's going to be hard for One Championship to really know and see their way clear and navigate through. I mean, there's the US and the UFC, a lot of their fighters are based in the same country, right? Whereas the difference with one championship is when there's like hundreds and hundreds of fighters all from so many different regions. So it's like, if borders are closed, how can they put on a closed door event even if people can't leave the countries that they're in?
Yeah, it's a great point. What are how's everything going up at your, like, how are you handling it personally? Like, you and your family, are you guys safe? Are you know, where's your mindset at regarding what's happened, and what are you doing to stay busy and keep an active mind as well, not only just an active body?
Yeah, for sure. It's been a complete change of pace for me. I mean, anyone that knows me knows from the moment I leave the house at 6 o'clock in the morning, or most mornings 5, but from the moment I start my day at 6, is I'm nonstop. It's like every hour I'm on the go. I've got something on that I'm doing, whether I'm training people, training myself, whether I've got physio appointments or meetings or whatever it is that I'm doing. I'm constantly on the go. So like to be cruising along on like a bullet train type thing, so to speak, to just boom, stopping dead has been a real shock to the system. But it's, as much as it's been stressful, I mean, like, I'm a business owner, I'm an athlete, my income has been completely severed. I've got, I mean, nothing coming in. It is, you know, I know a lot of people are kind of like trying to fit between the rules behind the scenes, whereas like our gym, we're very, very big on following the restrictions that the government have put in place, because they have been put in place for a reason. And if we all do the right thing, this thing will go by quicker, right? So we're not trying to like hide behind closed doors and do things that we shouldn't be doing. We have completely shut shop, right? So in that regard, it's been super stressful. It's been worrying. It's been a tough time. But there's a blessing in every curse, right? So 4.5 months ago, I became a dad for the first time, and I'm just spending every single day at home with my daughter, man. And it's just been
awesome, man.
As tough as it's been magical at the same time, man. It's like I'm getting to see the things that a lot of dads don't get to see, you know, like the mum is on maternity leave and they're the breadwinner, you know. So in that regard, it's been great, and I've still been keeping fit. Like, I got a weight set up in my garage, so I'm still managing to get my conditioning done. I'm running. I'm shadow boxing like 5 times a day, every single day, fixing up little things that I feel like I need to work on. And so in that regard, it's been a blessing, but it's also been good from a business perspective, because I had so many things that I've been trying to achieve, and like, I was just so busy, you know. It's like I had so many windows open on my desktop that I never really got to finish each task. So it's like, now I'm like closing each one off as I go. You know what I mean? I've got this time spare to, I mean, like I said, I've been smashing out some episodes of my podcast, which I've been really slack on, you know, being a new dad and running a business. I haven't had the time to do it, which, I mean, I hate using that excuse, because I think that that's not even a real thing. If it's important, you'll make the time. But I think, so in that regard, it's been really, really special, and it's given me some time to sit back and reflect on my life and think about, like, what is it that like I want to do. I'm 31 years old now. I've had 60 pro fights in my career, and it's like I'm at no means at a crossroads in my life or in my career, but it just gave me a chance to really sit back and evaluate the things that are important to me, and the things that I really want to achieve, and the people that are around me that are special to me, and how we're going to continue to grow, and how we're going to rebuild after this COVID situation, and just like really just sit back and assess, like, all right, cool. This is what I've done. This is where I got to in my life. What am I going to do moving forward? I mean, it sounds corny, I guess, but I'm at that point where I'm like, what's my legacy going to be moving forward? Is it going to be, all right, cool, I had some cool fights, or like, what's the impact that I'm going to leave? And I think that's kind of the mindset that I'm at right now. Is for me, I'm trying to create a future for my family and a future for my daughter. And I mean, life's unpredictable, man. Who knows what could happen tomorrow, right? So for me, I'm at a point in my life where I'm now like, I want to, let's say the unthinkable happens tomorrow, that my daughter can look back and go, wow, like, this is what my dad did with his life. And it was cool, and it's inspiring, you know. That's where I'm at. And it's like this COVID situation is like, you know, when like the wheels are always turning. You don't have time to just stop and reset. A really good friend of mine once said to me, he runs a lot of successful businesses and he's built a lot of like successful brands and things like that. He said to me years ago, it's hard to work on your brand when you're working in your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, that's so true. And it made a lot of sense. And it's easier said than done. But in the midst of all this COVID situation and everything that's going on, it made me realize that that's not necessarily just from a business perspective. It's hard to work on your life when you're so busy in your life, which kind of sounds counterproductive, right? But it's like when you finally get a chance to just stop and look at everything and you go, oh, wow, actually, you know what? I need to change this. I want to change that. Like, just gives you a chance to sit back and almost get like a bird's eye view on everything and puts everything into perspective sometimes. And the things that worried you and the things that you thought were like these massive problems and things that were really like you were struggling to get through or whatever it is, it's like everything just gets put into perspective and you're like, oh, actually, you know what, man? And it's like, and I've known this for a long time. My life is perfect, man. Like it really is. Like I don't have anything that I can complain about, you know? And it's like, I thought my life was so perfect for so long, and it was, but on the 22nd of December when my daughter was born, it just got even more perfect. So it's like, when I look back at things that maybe troubled me or whatever, and midst of like this COVID situation and people are sick and there's all this grim stuff going on in the world, I'm like, it's just been a refreshing change of pace to look back and go and reassure myself that I love what I'm doing and I love my life. You know, I think a lot of people that are sitting in isolation right now that might not be working or whatever, they think, oh man, I don't want to go back to my life. I like this. I don't want to get back to work. I hate my job, or I don't like that guy. I don't like this guy that I associate with, or whatever it is. But for me, I'm like, it's just reaffirmed that I love everything about my life. It's like, so sometimes you don't know what you have until it's taken away, right? So it's like, it's just reconfirmed that, man, I'm on the right track and I'm doing everything that is right for me. So I think that's the mindset that I'm at now, especially it looks like we're coming out of this thing. Like, well, we're on, it's like on the road out now, we're kind of past the peak of it, so to speak. So I'm like, I mean, obviously there's things that I want to improve and adjust and whatever else, but generally speaking, it's been a really woke moment for me, so to speak, where I'm like, man, like this is everything that I want. It's
awesome, man. It's an awareness that is infectious. So I'm sure your friends and your close people you keep around you, I'm sure they know that about you. And I mean, the legacy that you spoke about, it's already written, man. You have a young family, a new child, your career, and you coach, you help people. And dude, every time I speak to you, like I said, the first time was June 2018. Now it's May 2020. You keep evolving on other levels as well, man. So on that note, before I let you go, let everyone know where they can listen to your podcast, what's it called, and then how they can subscribe to it.
Yeah, cool. So it's called Team Compton Radio. It is available on pretty much any major streaming service, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, things like that. It's also on YouTube. I upload little clips onto my social media, like on my Instagram. Hit up Elliot CPT. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like it's cool, man. It's pretty easy to find. So Team Compton Radio.
I'll put all those links in the show notes.